Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jai Gopi Jannavalabha, Jaya Girivardhari, Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha, Jaya Girivardhari, Jaya Jashodanandana, Jaya Brajajannaranjana, Jaya Jashodanandana, Jaya Brajajannaranjana, Jaya Jamunatiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Jamunatiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Madhava Ki Jai. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam bhungam langayate girim yakripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Damodar Priya says, Hare Krishna and welcome. If you're new to our class, please feel free to type in the chat if you have any questions or concerns, or just how we can welcome you. Thank you so much, Damodar Priya, for that. If you're not new to the class, please feel free to type in the chat if you have any questions or concerns on how we can continue to welcome you. My headphones in. Okay. Today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 31, verses 6 and 7. Chapter 31, entitled The Gopis' Song of Separation. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're still in this very esoteric section of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 5 chapters of the Gopis in Vrindavan. Okay, Canto 10, Chapter 31, verses 6 through 7. Okay. Here we go. Let me share my screen. The Gopi Song of Separation. Praja janati hanvira yoshitam nija janasmaya dvam sannasmita bhajasake bhavat kinkarismano jala ruhananam charu darshaya. Translation, short translation, no purport here. O you who destroy the suffering of Braja's people, O hero of all women, your smile shatters the false pride of your devotees. Please, dear friend, accept us as your maidservants and show us your beautiful lotus face. Hare Krishna, O you who destroy the suffering of Braja's people, O hero of all women, your smile shatters the false pride of your devotees. Please, dear friend, accept us as your maidservants and show us your beautiful lotus face. Okay, Hare Krishna. So a lot. That's in the next verse. We have just a short purport. So let's just look at a few of the things here that come across. First one, O you who destroy the suffering of Braja's people. We were just singing Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. He's the delight of the residents of Braja. And so throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically in the 10th canto, the residents of Vrindavan are continuously put into suffering. Continuously put into suffering, whether it's one demon after another, or forest fire, or some calamity, or Indra bringing on torrential rainfall. It's continuous situations where the residents of Vrindavan are put into suffering, which is interesting to note because it doesn't mean that necessarily difficult circumstances are a result of us even doing something wrong. Sometimes life is going really tough because there's some karma that we're experiencing. Sometimes it's just the climate of the material world. Prabhupada would say that you can't expect to jump in the ocean and not get wet. And so the nature of the ocean is that it's wet. The nature of the material world is that it's filled with suffering. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam mentions in Bhagavad Gita. From the highest planet, what is that verse in Bhagavad Gita? Anybody know? Before I find it. 8th chapter, Bhagavad Gita. Where is it? Yes. Which verse is it? Here it is. Abraba bhuvana loka punar avartino arjuna mamupetya tu konteya punar janmana vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So the climate of this material world is that there's suffering. So we've jumped into the ocean of material life, and when things get difficult, we ask what's wrong, without recognizing that it's just the climate. It's just the climate. And interestingly, when we go back, but sometimes we put into difficulties. So sometimes we're put into difficulties because it's the nature of some karma that we're burning off. Sometimes we're put in difficulty just because it's the nature of the climate. Prabhupada mentions in the purport of the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna surrenders to Krishna, Karpanyadoso pahata sabhavam, I'm now surrendered unto you because I'm in a bewildered state out of miserly weakness. Please instruct me. Prabhupada mentions in the purport that all of us find ourselves in a bewildered condition of life, and miseries come even though we don't ask for them. And so sometimes it comes just because of the nature of the climate. And sometimes when we're really, really sincere in spiritual life, Krishna puts us in a situation of difficulty in order to squeeze out any other conception that there is anywhere to turn towards for our shelter other than Krishna's lotus feet. So when we see the examples of the residents of Vrindavan, what we're finding is we're finding what it's like in the heart of a devotee when there's nothing there other than desire for Krishna's shelter. Because sometimes when it's like if you have, imagine you have like, you ever go through your medicine cabinet or your closet and you find like a tube of some medicine that you got from a doctor a long time ago, but it doesn't have a label on it. You're not really sure what's in it. Is this toothpaste or is this toe cream? Not really sure which one this is. Unless you know what it is, the only way to understand is when you squeeze it. So to understand what's inside something, you squeeze it and what's inside comes out. And so similarly, when we get squeezed in life, all of the things that are deep inside our hearts, our genuine motivations, our genuine desires start to come out. And so when you squeeze the heart of a pure devotee, nothing but love for Krishna comes out. And so you find that when the residents of Vrindavan get squeezed by the intense trials and tribulations, they turn nowhere but Krishna. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace. So you who destroy the suffering of Braja's people, how does he destroy the suffering of Braja's people? By giving them himself. By giving them himself. And we as aspiring, maturing, practicing devotees have this conviction, even if we don't completely feel it 100% in our hearts, and we don't feel it 100% in our heart because we wouldn't be here if we did. And so we don't have to beat ourselves up for not being there yet, but we know that that's the trajectory that we want to be on. Is that at the end of the day, the only shelter that I want to be able to receive is Krishna. And I have Krishna. Krishna is there for us. He's appeared to us in the form of Radha Mulidhar. He's appeared to us in the form of the holy name. He's appeared to us in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. He comes to us in the forms of devotee association. But we take it for granted. We take it for granted. And so how do I get to a place where I'm learning to value the ways in which Krishna is showing up in my life? And I can do it very easily in any moment, or I can actually start to recognize the ways in which Krishna is showing up in my life. And the suffering that I'm experiencing, the experience of suffering that's going on in my life, it's not because that person said something to me, or that person's not going my way, or this material circumstance, or that material circumstance. The real cause of my suffering is because I've taken for granted the presence of Krishna in my life. And I'm not recognizing the ways in which Krishna is showing up in my life. And that may not be the switch that I turn on today, but I want to make it my life's goal. And life's mission. Gauranga, who gave a beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam class, Bhagavad Shravana, this past Sunday, and he was talking about the different ways in which we plan for things in life, career planning and relationship planning and health planning and all the different types of planning, all types of plannings of things that we do for stuff in this life. But spirituality is when I start planning for my destination beyond this life. And if that becomes my concern, then the book and the study for such a goal is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if that's not your goal, then a lot of the instructions become irrelevant. And so based off of the goal and what I'm aspiring for, the instructions become relevant or irrelevant. And so if my goal is to soothe the deepest sufferings of my heart, then at least I have the recognition that actually nothing's going to soothe that other than Krishna placing his lotus feet on my heart and me recognizing the value of those lotus feet on my heart. So you who destroy the suffering of Braja's people, what were they suffering from? All kinds of things. What was the only remedy? Krishna in their life. O hero of all women, Vedically, spiritually, Krishna is the Purusha and everything else is the Prakriti. So Krishna is the enjoyer and we are the enjoyed. And so all of us, when it says Krishna, O hero of all women, it's Krishna, hero of every single living being who is seeking shelter of Krishna. So it's saying, oh, you hear of the gopis, but also you hear of every living being that ultimately is seeking shelter in you. Your smile shatters the false pride of your devotees. And therefore we hear the stories throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. We hear the stories of Krishna's pure devotees who seek shelter in Krishna. And we also find the shelter of those pure devotees making their journey towards Krishna, Dhruva Maharaj, Gajendra. Great devotees who had their pride shattered, Indra, along the way. So we find that we want Krishna to be the only source of our relief in life. We want to be taking shelter of him. And the barrier between that is our false ego. And so Krishna mercifully, doesn't feel mercifully at the time, removes that along the way. And it's the hallmark of a mature devotee, is that when something takes place in life that is challenging, that is embarrassing, that is a struggle, that we don't resist. Maybe there's a feeling of discomfort, but we recognize the only thing at stake here is my false ego. That's the only thing at stake here. The only thing at stake here is my false ego. What are people going to think of me? What am I going to think of myself? What's my position in this social circle or going to be? Because my devotion to my opportunity to serve Krishna is never impeded. My opportunity to express love for Krishna is never impeded. My opportunity to be seen by Krishna is never impeded. The only thing that's really at stake here is my false ego. And when that starts to crack or get shattered, I can actually see it as Krishna's blessing in my life. I can start to see it as Krishna's blessing in my life and recognize that all the things that I thought were really important that I needed aren't. Because what I only need in order to destroy the suffering of my heart is Krishna's lotus feet in my life, Krishna's holy name, Krishna's divine instructions, the association of Krishna's devotee, the opportunity and chance to serve, which I can do anywhere, anytime, under any circumstances. So please, therefore, dear friend, accept us as your maidservants and show us your beautiful lotus face. Reminds me of a beautiful verse that's there in the Ishopanishad also. This let's look at the Ishopanishad real briefly. It's one of the last verses. Yes. Where is that verse in the Ishopanishad? Your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. So this is saying that moving beyond the impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence of Krishna in order to discover his shining face. This Janmashtami, I think Champakwata and the devotees are planning a theme about meditating on Krishna's divine form. Third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Kapil Dev gives a very beautiful, detailed description of Krishna's divine form. And so the devotees are simply yearning to see Krishna's face. They want to see Krishna's smiling face. Okay. That is this verse, 10:31:6. Any reflections? We're going to the next verse. I thought maybe before I just keep speaking. Anybody want to share something or reflection? Something they noticed, something that sprung in their heart, or a question? Yes, I heard something, and then I also saw a hand raised.
Krishna Dayal has his hand raised.
Yes, please, Krishna Dai Prabhu.
So, thank you. In this part of the discussion, you are saying that so we take for granted the presence of Krishna, or so you explained like what happens if we don't take him for granted, but how do we do that? What ensures us that we don't take Krishna for granted?
How do we not take Krishna for granted? Asked by somebody who doesn't take Krishna for granted. It's Rupa Goswami describes a process of sadhana bhakti in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And he describes the symptoms of pure bhakti. And that when we perform bhakti, in a pure manner, that it's with that understanding and the value of Krishna in our life, and it's performed without any ulterior motive. It's performed uncovered by any desire other than to serve Krishna favorably with love. But what do I do if I don't have that, right? So he's saying that when you have that love, these are the things that you do that please Krishna. But if you don't have that love, then you still do these things with the prayer in your heart that you'll develop that love for Krishna. And that becomes sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti is the process that I don't have love for Krishna, but I want love for Krishna. I want love for Krishna. Therefore, I'm going to do the things that express love for Krishna, but I'm actually not expressing my love for Krishna. I'm expressing my desire to develop love for Krishna. And so how do I not take Krishna for granted? I perform the actions of sadhana bhakti with a prayer in my heart that I can develop the understanding of the value of Krishna in my life. And so through my sadhana, sangha, and my seva, I keep that mentality. And you also associate with devotees who haven't taken Krishna for granted. How do you increase your faith? You associate with people who have great faith. And so the association that we keep is extremely important. And the sadhana that we perform becomes very important. By continuously surrounding ourselves with Krishna in our life and our service. And so through our sadhana, our sangha, and our seva, in the proper mood. So it's not just that we do these things and we just kind of mindlessly and kind of move on. And I've been doing it. I think it was Ranat Swami. He gave a class, beautiful class, when he was here on a Saturday evening. He was talking about the story of, in the middle of the night, a family was traveling across the land and they came to a river and needed to cross the river. So they got into the boat and it was late at night and they all went to sleep. And the Roman was just rowing and 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 rowing all night long, but it was dark, so he couldn't quite see where he was going, but he was rowing and rowing and rowing and rowing. Finally, the sun came up and they woke up in the middle of the morning and they realized they hadn't gone anywhere. And they were bewildered. They're like, what's going on? They're trying to figure out. He'd been rowing and rowing and rowing. It was tired, but they hadn't gone anywhere. Till one person realized that they never lifted up the anchor. And so we can be doing all the things in devotional life, but if the anchor is still down. And so that story is described that we have to be doing our service in the right mood, of humble service of Krishna. I'm not trying to do this to be seen to be seen great by other people. I'm not trying to do this in order to gain some material wealth, whether it be physical or some subtle form of wealth in the form of praise or recognition from other. I'm really doing this because I want to purify my heart so that I can love and serve you and appreciate you in my life. So our sadhana, sangha, and seva in the right mood. And if we keep that sincere prayer, then Krishna reciprocates.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you, Krishna Dai Prabhu. Was there somebody else that wanted to say something? Is that it?
Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna.
I can't see. Can you hear me?
We can hear.
You can just see the verse. Yeah, very nice the way you're explaining that the suffering is coming, even though we're not seeking it. And sometimes it's due to the climate, sometimes it's due to our past misdeeds. And then you were hinting at this, that in the context of suffering, squeezing the devotees, and what comes out is their love for Krishna. So Krishna's motivation sometimes for putting us into difficulty is to glorify his devotees. Prabhupada tells us that Krishna is ultimately showing, just see what a good devotee this is. Under any circumstances they're going on, whether they're praised, whether they're criticized, whether they're ignored, whether there's a big result, whether there's no result, whether it looks like disaster, under any circumstances, without attachment to the result, just going on with the endeavor. So that glorifies the devotee, going on in spite of suffering. Kind of an interesting Krishna glorifying his devotee.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
just
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu, for that.
reverse it,
Thank
Prabhupada.
you. Jai.
There's a question in the chat
The
from
share
Poppy.
screen is still up.
From Poppy. How can I differentiate my suffering is due to climates or due to my wrong karma? Calamities. How to suffer is due to calamities or due to my wrong karma? It's a really good question. And I think in some cases when we get to the point of trying to aspire for Krishna, Prabhupada was giving a class once and he was speaking to the devotees or the audience. He said, you think that you're sitting on the floor, but I'm sitting on the hand of Krishna. And so when we come to devotional life, we start to see Krishna's hand in our life more present. We start to, we may never be able to answer that question, specifically. And in one sense, it becomes less relevant or important. What is this because of my karmas, because of the climates, is it because of this? What we believe and feel and have faith is that Krishna is ultimately calling me home. Whether he's directly reaching in or whether he's using Maya Devi, Durga Devi is a servant of Krishna. She's an agent of Krishna deployed into this world to help bring us back home, one way or the other. And so for a devotee, what we see is everything in our life is Krishna bringing me closer to him. So my suffering, whether it's due to calamities or due to my wrong karma, or simply Krishna trying to relieve me of the burden of my false ego, the way that he did for Indra and for Gajendra, for Dhruva, we start to see it more as Krishna in our life. Gail, you had your hand up.
Yeah, actually, after your last couple of sentences, I wanted to lower my hand back down because I was going to basically make a similar point that it was a comment, that we really shouldn't make a distinction between our karma and our calamity, and Krishna, because to do so is to say that Krishna is not in control of everything. Krishna may appear in our lives through this form or that form, but Maya means to separate Krishna from our lives, and
It's a beautiful point.
which is an illusory conception. It's a materialistic way of seeing life. So even when we are under the jurisdiction of karma, I see that maybe the parent may not homeschool the child, but he may send the child to a boarding school. That's how I see karma, but it's still the parent who chose the boarding school, even though they might not be schooling the child directly, it's still the parent's schooling, but let's say in an indirect way, so I feel like we should never feel like we are not under the protection of Krishna. It's just that protection just takes different forms. So, but like I said, you already said that.
It's so beautiful. Thank you for elaborating that and extending it and sharing your realization and examples. Is really, really beautiful. When Rananath Swami was here in his recent trip in New York, he's here for a short trip and his plane landed in New York in the evening time. So he went straight to his apartment and it was like 8:30 p.m. by the time he got to his apartment. And then he just, left him there. And then he went to sleep at some point. And then the next morning he was picked up to go somewhere else. And the person in the car picking him up asked, like, oh, did you sleep well after your flight? And, your first night, did you sleep well? And Maher said, I didn't sleep well, but I'm happy. I thought that was interesting. No, I didn't sleep well, but I'm happy. Meaning what I took from it is that, as long as my happiness is based off of material circumstances and some material comfort, like It's a very vulnerable, sticky place to be. But sometimes my body and my mind are going to feel comfortable. Sometimes it's not. But I'm trying to look beyond that and see where Krishna is. There's a couple hands up still. I don't know if Gail had her hand up, and there's one or two. We'll take one or two short ones. Bhima and William had, if we can just keep it brief, because we have one more verse to read. So William, you want to share something brief, and then Bhima, you want to share something brief?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Just briefly, can we also liken ourselves to chocolates? Like, remember the movie Forrest Gump? Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know which one you're going to get. So when you squeeze a chocolate, when you open it, sometimes you get nuts, sometimes you get caramels, and sometimes you get different. No, am I going off the wrong page here?
That's a lot sweeter than toothpaste and toe fungus cream.
Okay.
Well, thank you for elevating that analogy.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Bhima Prabhu.
Haribol Dayal Prabhu. Wonderful expository class there. How to relate it into our own lives. I was walking with Maharaj the other day, and we were going over a lot of the things that had happened in the past, decades ago, and over the years. And I turned to him and I said, this is all Kurukshetra. And he said, and he turned to me and he said, for ourselves, we should always view it like we are on the battlefield. But for others, we should always view them with compassion, that if something's happening to them, and this is where that whole karma and Krishna comes in, that if something is happening, because after all, we're das anudas, we have a chance to assist, to serve, to help devotees. And he said that we should always feel compassionate upon other devotees when when they're in difficulty, whether it be spiritual or material difficulty, that we have that chance to, even on the battlefield, if someone is hit, that we should go out of our way to not leave the battlefield ourselves without taking them with us, so to speak. So I just wanted to share that Maharaj said that about some of the things that had happened over the years, and the wide sweep of the drama of devotee life. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for bringing in the point of compassion and compassion for other people. Thank you, Bhima. And I'll just, because it was here, Damodar Priya put this beautiful verse in the chat. You can see in the chat from the 10th canto Bhagavatam, 14th chapter. My dear Lord, spoken by Brahma, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon them, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of the past misdeeds and offering respectful obeisances with the heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become their rightful claim. So if you want more reference, please check Bhagavatam Canto 10, chapter 14, verse 8, where this hope, this sense that yes, Krishna's mercy in our life is inevitable. The journey between now and then may be wrought with certain degrees of material suffering, but the devotee sees beyond that. It's one of my favorite, like that beautiful quote from Rabindranath Tagore, who says that faith is the bird that sings in the darkness before the dawn, because they feel the light is coming. So the devotee has that faith that Krishna's light is in my life, even though I can't always see it in the darkness of the material world. Okay, chapter 31, verse 7. Pranata dehinam papakarshanam trina charanugam sriniketanam Panifanarpitam te padambujam krinu kucheshuna krindhi rikchayam. Your lotus feet destroy the past sins of all embodied souls who surrender unto them. Those feet follow after the cows in the pastures and are the eternal abode of the goddess of fortune. So we're getting this emphasis of what's of real value. Krishna's lotus feet on our hearts. Since you once put those feet on the hoods of the great serpent Kalia, please place them upon our breasts and tear away the lust in our hearts. So the same thing we were saying, right? Please place your lotus feet on my heart and tear away the lust in our hearts. You put those feet on the hoods of the great serpent Kalia. Please, why would you not show me the same mercy? And so interestingly, Krishna putting his hoods on the great serpent Kalia seemed like such a great misfortune. And it seemed like such Kalia was in such great distress because Krishna was defeating him. But actually, whether it seems like Krishna's mercy is coming from the front or coming from behind or coming from the side or coming from above or coming from below, it's all Krishna's mercy. And the devotee has to come to the realization that whatever is happening, how can I see the hallmark of all the devotees that we look up to, all of our gurus and our Guru Jana and Srila Prabhupada himself and our acharyas, that whatever's coming into our life, we're seeing this is Krishna's mercy in my life. How is this Krishna's mercy in my life? How is this Krishna's mercy in my life? How can I take responsibility for my own wrongdoings and my own karma and my own? It's not that there was. I heard a story that once there was Srila Prabhupada took Charanamrita, and devotees had put salt instead of sugar, and so you're supposed to put sugar and sweet things in the Charanamrita, but the devotees had put salt and it didn't taste right. And Prabhupada asked what happened. And one devotee said, "Oh, Prabhupada, it's Krishna's mercy, that this happened." And then Prabhupada said, "No, it's your own foolishness." And so we just shouldn't think that we just can do anything foolish and reckless and think that, oh, it's Krishna's mercy in my life. Like, no, I'm also sometimes have to take responsibility for my actions. But the way I can take responsibility for my actions is that recognizing that it's an opportunity for me to shed a layer of my ego and surrender more deeply to Krishna. So you put those lotus feet on the hoods of the great serpent Kalia by defeating him. Please place that same lotus feet on our chest and tear away the lust in our hearts. Purport. In their appeal, the gopis point out that Lord Krishna's lotus feet destroy the sins of all surrendered conditioned souls. The Lord is so merciful that he even goes out to herd the cows in the pasturing ground, and thus his lotus feet follow them about in the grass. He has offered his lotus feet to the goddess of fortune and has placed them upon the hoods of the serpent Kalia. Therefore, considering all this, the Lord should place his lotus feet on the gopis' breasts and satisfy their desire. That is the logic of the gopis. That is the logic the gopis employ here. Hare Krishna. Damodar Priya put, Krishna's mercy in our life is inevitable. Damodar Priya, did you have your hand raised?
Yes, Hare Krishna. Good morning, Dayal, Gauranga Prabhu. I did have my hand raised because I have a question that has come up when this topic comes up about seeing the challenges in our lives as Krishna's mercy, and I've had it asked to me, and I'm not sure how to address it. So there's some people who have gone through experiences regarding religion that have been traumatic. Either they've been, perhaps abused by clergy members or people that within their spiritual community that they trusted in, and they feel that that verses like this or religious ideas where we're trying to see even the challenges in life as God's mercy, that they're used to kind of keep victims of such abuse from speaking out or things of that sort. And they kind of bring up these concerns. So I was just wondering, I don't feel qualified a lot of times to answer these questions. So I usually refer them to senior devotees, but I'm just wondering, can you address it just because this seems to come up a lot? Thank you so much, if possible.
Great. It's a great question. Thank you. And I think what Bhima Prabhu mentioned earlier speaks a lot to us in how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others. And so it's important for us in our own suffering, we can aspire to see how whatever's happening to me is somehow bringing me closer to Krishna, and recognizing that's a very elevated space to be in. Look at the examples that we have of Draupadi. Draupadi was abused by her own extended family. right? And it brought her to the place of surrender, but it took her a while to get there. It wasn't that at the beginning when Dushasana started tugging on her robes, it wasn't like Draupadi's first response was, Krishna, save me. Like her first response was to employ every possible means to fight it off herself. Eventually getting to the point at the last moment, in the last hour, no other resort, hey Govinda. And so we find these in our own suffering, that sometimes Krishna is bringing us closer to him. When the sufferings of others, it's important for us to employ compassion. And sometimes when we're experiencing such an intense degree of suffering, I heard Srila Prabhupada was mentioning that, you know, a hungry person can't really appreciate art. I think devotees had taken him to a museum, or there was something, and they were looking at Prabhupada, said a hungry person can't appreciate art. Meaning, like, when like the basic things of our life are out of alignment, how can we even discuss higher topics of philosophy or artistic expression when I'm hungry and I'm cold and I'm suffering? That material suffering has such an acute focusing of the consciousness, that when we're suffering, that sometimes there's nothing we can do other than try to just alleviate at least some level of suffering. You know, it's like if you got to go to the bathroom really, really, really bad, and someone, can I talk to you? It's like, I need to just go to the bathroom first, because there's nothing that I'm not gonna be able to. I can't focus on anything. I just need to go to the bathroom and just relieve this sensation. I'm really, 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 really hungry. We even have a phrase: you get hangry. You know, I'm starting to get irritable because I just need a sandwich. I need a granola bar. I need something, you know, because I'm not even acting myself, because there's just this pit of hunger in me. And so we sometimes don't recognize that sometimes actually, in order for us to even think clearly and process some of these philosophical topics, there has to be some level of material relief in order for us to be, sandwiches can be very liberating for the mind, yes, in order for us to actually understand what's really going on. And so we're giving silly examples of having to go to the bathroom or feeling hungry. If somebody's experiencing a tremendous trauma of being abused, especially in a religious context, it's going to take a lot of healing and a lot of love and a lot of compassion, a lot of reassuring, to get to the point to see how Krishna is showing up for me in my life. And we also shouldn't mistake other people's abuses as Krishna's will. That sometimes people do horrible, terrible things to other people, which isn't Krishna's will. But it's people exacting terrible things out of. That's why we're here in the material world. It's like we're all in one big prison together, and people do really tough things to other people. And so if somebody's suffering in an intense place, our job as devotees isn't to show them how Krishna designed all of this for them. Sometimes our job is just to simply accept that they're suffering, and how can I extend compassion to them to get them to the place where they are not reeling in their suffering so intensely that they're not even able to look for Krishna showing up in their life. Can we go to proper authorities when we learn about this abuse? You have to, you should, and you must. Yeah, I think that's also. I mean, we're out of time, but when there's of any kind of a type of abuse or challenge, you sometimes think I'm just going to go to my counselor or my guide, and actually you should be going to some sort of legal authorities. Definitely. Yeah, when I was living in the ashram, the Bhakti Center, one of the other devotees was a chaplain, Hindu chaplain at Columbia University, and they're trained that when somebody comes to you with something that's beyond you, you have a right to report it to somebody, whether it be to a therapist or a police officer or campus authorities or something. We shouldn't just take it on ourselves to deal with something. It's going to take a lot of time, love, and care to see the hand of Krishna. Yes. Okay, we're 2 minutes over time. I don't know if the darshan is there or not, or anybody's going to be, no darshan yet. He's shaking his head. So
Bhima Prabhu, you had your hand up. You want to share something quickly before darshan?
Just wanted to say, Dayal Gauranga said it. I just wanted to repeat it, which is we're looking for Krishna to show up in our lives. On other devotees is Krishna showing up in our lives. So we have a chance to either serve the devotee as if Krishna was right there watching, or when somebody comes into our lives, a devotee comes and with compassion. Hare Krishna.
Okay, I see cameras popping up. Thank you, dear devotees. Thank you. Darshan time. Jai. Dayal Gauranga Prabhu, thank you very much. Your classes are the best. Good quality content. Dayal Gauranga Prabhu, and your own character is in line with what you're preaching from what we see. Thank you, Prabhu. And thanks for keeping it interactive. Thanks for letting everyone speak, Dayal Gauranga Prabhu. Thank you.
thank you, and thank you everybody so much. I'm grateful for all of you. Hare Krishna.
Okay. All right. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Jamuna Jaya, seeing Krishna's mercy everywhere she goes. Nice. Krishna's mercy on a Jersey Transit. That's how we do it.
Damodar Priya Mataji asked the best question. Yeah? You can hear me okay?
About abuse, yeah.
Mataji asked the best question. What about suffering? What if somebody's abusing you? Do you just take it as Krishna's mercy? It's a really good question. And of course, depends on who's asking, because some people will want to know what's the highest way to respond to this. I saw one time an illustration of Jesus lying on the cross, and he was looking at someone driving a nail into his arm, into his hand, and he was feeling sorry for the person. And then he said, Lord, have mercy on them. They don't know what they're doing. So the person being the receptor of some terrible abuse can choose to actually, of course we want to approach an authority, we're not masochists, we don't just let people do stuff like that to us, we don't seek that out. But on the other hand, somewhere along the line, there's the attitude we have to that person, because the Bible says, vengeance is mine, I will repay. Krishna sees everything. That person that's doing that abuse, that person's going to suffer. So we can actually feel sorry for them. But we do, in any case, for the sake of the benefit of that person who's doing that, they'll benefit by being chastised, they'll benefit by being called out. You know.
By being reported, yep. We stop the abuse.
We believe.
We feel compassionate. Yeah.
What?
We stop the abuse, we report the abuse, and we feel sorry for them, and we pray for them.
Yeah.
No, we beat them mercilessly.
We beat them.
You have enough to beat them. If Krishna's asking you to beat them, you can do it, but you have to have a lot of love to beat somebody.
Hari.
Radhanath Swami told us, my father would tell me, I hate to do this hurts me more than you. And then he would give me a spanking ferociously. But first,
I love them with my right fist, and I love them with my left fist.
Yeah, if you have enough love, you can do that. But if we do that,
Remember that we're not trying to advocate corporal punishment of children or of others, please. I'm sorry to step in and be the disclaimer.
Obviously not talking about children, Mother. I'm talking about the abuser. There should be no room. There should be no room for them. Hare Krishna.
Okay, can I take a chance on and say something?
Yeah.
Because we were just saying that, you love with the right and chastise with the left or something like that. But that also goes for the victim of abuse. Again, I am by no means advocating for corporal punishment or any kind of abuse, not at all. But it is the same Krishna who sanctioned that person, that victim of abuse, be abused. And so just as, the abuser is going to get chastised, the victim of abuse, he or she is also getting chastised by that same supremely loving God. I mean, I don't think that, we should necessarily maybe be so vocal about that to the victim at that time, but that is the reality. He's not sanctioning that abuse in the same mood that the abuser abused the person. But if he sanctioned it, it is his love coming in that way, even though it's just more difficult to experience how it's his mercy. We might have to wait a long time and see in hindsight how it was merciful that the person go through that experience. But if it's sanctioned, it has to be a form of love somehow or other.
That would be like saying on the battlefield, that when somebody gets shot or somebody is the victim of an atrocity, that somehow all's fair in love and war. Our viewpoint as not being the victim, but being the person who has a chance, that Krishna has given us a chance to represent him and to take a bullet for that other person. Christ said, there's no greater manifestation of love than that someone give his life for his fellow man or for his fellow soul. So similarly, we should always be willing to take the time to not only listen, but to rectify a situation and to stop it. If somebody comes into your house and they are there to harm your wife and child, you don't sit there and say, well, that's the way it rolls, or apparently this is being sanctioned. What's being sanctioned is that Krishna is giving you a chance to do something about it. Just
Yeah,
like
I
Krishna
totally
gives Arjuna a
agree.
chance.
The perspective I was giving was not from us as seeing what's happening. I'm talking about if that should happen to us, just like that verse that was quoted earlier today, 10:14:8. We should see that everything is coming because of my karma, but that should not be the viewpoint of the person who is witnessing the abuse. I was trying to be very clear about that. I was not saying that as a reason to sit back and do nothing. I'm saying if it is true that although we are not supposed to sit idly by, but that is not the proper response, to sit back idly and watch it happen. I'm saying there's supposed to be different responses depending upon who we're talking about. If it's from the perspective of the victim, there's one response. If it's the perspective of a person in authority, there's another response. If there's the position of a person who is seeing this happen, there should be another response. It's not one size fits all the response in the exact same situation.
And I actually think that both you and Bhima Prabhu are correct, Gail. So you're right that there are different responses depending on where you are in the circumstances. The reason why I asked the question is because I wanted to make sure that though in the higher philosophical and ideal state, as like both Adipurush Prabhu and Dayal Gauranga Prabhu mentioned, that we do want to see everything in that high state, that it's important for us to realize that there are practical kind of ways for us to kind of step down into it. And I wanted to make sure that that was addressed so that a verse like that couldn't be used for someone that maybe is getting abused, who is an adult, and we don't know, is it karma or is it not? It doesn't matter. But for them to not take that abuse, for them thinking, oh, well, this is Krishna's mercy, this person is abusing me or doing something horrible to me, because it's still some way Krishna's love. So I wanted to make sure that that was addressed, because unfortunately in our religious communities, not just ours, but in others, verses and higher philosophical ideas like that are used to allow abuse to continue, not just to children, but to women, to men, to everybody. So I just wanted to make sure that we kept both the ideal, high philosophical truth there, but also the practical reality that we're in the material world and we're in Kali Yuga, and that we don't want to allow abuse happen to us or others because of that higher ideal. I don't know if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, it does. It's just that, you brought up this misconception that there is, that even if something is coming to be by my karma, it is not humility to just lay like a doormat and take it. You're supposed to protect yourself to the extent that you can, and to the extent that you can't, then you invoke must be my karma. But you can't understand what your karma is unless you try and do everything to battle it. So humility is not to just be a doormat for any and everything that comes at you. That's also a misapplication of scripture.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Damodar Priya. when Srila Prabhupada's guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, heard that there was a plot to kill him, he took measures. So Krishna arranged this thought in the heart of that killer to kill Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but Krishna also arranged that this police officer approached Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and told him that there's a plot going on against you. So Krishna arranged everything, both. And at one point, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had to change clothes with one of his disciples to escape the angry mob that was trying to kill him. So Krishna is there, wherever we look. But like Dayal Gauranga said, it may not be our job to immediately tell everybody that this is Krishna's arrangement to punish you. That's a very delicate subject matter. And if I were, when I'm on my deathbed, I want Bhima Prabhu walk in there and tell me, Ananda Bihari, it's all your fault, you fool. I want that. I want it. I know that. I know Bhima Prabhu is coming from a place of love for me. I want him to spank me, but I also want Damodar Priya in that room, and I want her to report that abuse. It's variety. It different things may work for different people. Sometimes strong words are necessary and helpful. Sometimes compassion and love and is necessary. It depends. So let's pray to Krishna for intelligence, so that he can guide us and show us how to act according to time, place, and circumstance in the mood of service to Prabhupada and his children. My rant is over. Hare Krishna. And thank you very much for being so active.
I'll be with the Yamadutas that show up. Look for my face underneath the horns.
No. And on the Bihari, your wife and I would be right in front saying, "Nuh-uh,
Yeah,
not happening." Give the
hit him with a frying pan at the Yamadu. Okay, Hare Krishna. Love you
I
all.
would be there too, by the way.
Gail, yeah, I want all of you. I want all of you. I want Krishna Daya reciting shlokas.
With the frying
everybody.
pan, I mean. With the frying pan, I would. Just want to be understood here.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being part of our family. We need you. We depend on you. We love you, Hare Krishna. And we love your pets, Hare Krishna.